Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,000 comedians and counting over the last 48 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's the wonderful Kate Martin. Yeah!
Hello, how you doing? No, that is a welcome.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm good. Glad to be here.
Lovely to see you, and thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's great.
It's this is great. It's going to be an interview lasting about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's going to be all about your comedy career. And I'd like
to take that long then.
I'd like to go right back to the start and ask you, how did you become a comedian in the first place?
God, where did it start? Well, it's a few years ago now, but I guess what got me into it was I was working full time and studying for a couple of years together. And what I realized was I just become such a miserable cow. Like all I was doing was working or studying.
Oh.
And like to get me to the end of it, I was like, right, when I finish, I am doing something that's just for me, that's just for fun, just for the hell of it. And that's kind of what got me to the end of it. And so, but when I finished that, I just got into doing some like improv workshops. Loved it, absolutely loved it. It was great. It was just like, adult playtime. Loved it. And then they had these like stand-up workshops as well, and a few people had said, "Oh, you should do it," and I was like, "No, don't be ridiculous." Okay. So then that's what got me into it, and I just fell in love with it. So that was a few years back now. But so all that effort I put into studying and kind of ditched it all and started doing this instead. But
what's better?
Exactly.
It's similar to me because my background, I was a civil servant for 17 years. I then worked in a school for 11 years, and I've just started a brand new job in the council, Wandsworth Council, and which I love. But it's all admin. It's fine. But I was looking for something else other than the norm.
Yeah.
And I found comedy. I mean, my first ever comedy show was in the early 70s with my mum and dad and my brother, which was Les Dawson in Scarborough, which was fantastic. And then a year later, we saw Tommy Cooper, and I got a bug for it. But I just wrote everything down. I had a giant spreadsheet, and then one day I thought, who's gonna want to know about this? But I think I've got an idea here, and the blog started, and then the podcast took off, and it's
amazing.
I think what's wonderful is that it's unique because it's coming from an audience point of view, and also it envelops the up and coming comedians as well as the new established ones as well. So I'm very, very proud of it, and I'm delighted to have you as a guest on. I really am.
I'm really delighted to be in. I've seen I've read loads of blogs, and it's really interesting to see
it's like an archive of
comedians and comedy and the different types on offer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It is incredible. So what sort of year are we talking about when you did your first gig?
God, where are we now? It was probably late 2019. About 2019 first started.
So relatively new.
Yeah. And I picked a great time to start. Do you know what I mean?
You know
what I mean? Decided to make a bit of a change, start getting into something new. I can't think of anything that's really got in the way of that in the meantime at all, actually.
Wow. So, well, you've done remarkably well. Over when you first started out, was it the sort of way in where you did 5 minutes here and there in pubs, in audiences? Because I'm forever audience friends. Because of my laugh, I go and they think it's amazing and all the rest of it, which I love. But
it's brilliant. You definitely know you're in the room, which is brilliant. If only more people laugh like you did, it would be a better place. But I did this comedy course, and there was like an end of course show, which probably was like, I remember people saying to me, enjoy this because it'll be, when we were nervous beforehand, people were like, this will be the best gig you ever do because everybody in this room wants everybody to do well. And they're like the least critical audience. They were probably right, actually. So I did that and like got the bug for it. And then, I did a few open mics around about, like you say, starting off with the 5 minutes. And like, I remember even back then, it was like the thought of even getting to 5 minutes and having like felt like impossible. And then all of a sudden, then you're doing a bit longer and a bit longer. But because of the pandemic, like, so I did a few gigs in real life, and then had to start doing stuff online, which was just, I mean, you know, as everybody knows, it's so different.
Different ball game.
100%. So when that stopped and I sort of got back into the real world again, I was like, I don't know if any of the stuff I've been doing online is going to be even vaguely funny in real life, because like you don't get the same feedback and stuff, do you?
No, well, no, I suppose not. So when you first started, did you find it difficult to get gigs, or were certain places or anywhere easy to go to ask for gigs? Were pubs or rooms crying out for comedians to go on?
Yeah. But I suppose, like, living in London, I suppose you're really lucky because there's so many like decent open mic nights that are there's just, you know, there's so many open mic nights you can get on, loads of places offering open spots. So it was there's just so many to sort of choose from, I suppose. But I think, you know, it's really lucky living in somewhere like London where there's so much of that and there's a really good scene. And quickly you meet people who put you in touch with other people who've got other gigs. And so it was kind of fine. Yeah. I mean, I guess what was hard was coming out the other side of the pandemic when things first started to open up again. Like, there was such a hustle for spots because there was all this, like, you know, so much more competition because everyone was kind of waiting to get back on. So that was harder then, I think, just because of people have been locked away.
It was an extraordinary, awful time. I mean, and the industry got absolutely decimated. Thank God it's come back, you know, because the opportunities for comedians now are massive. Would you agree that the more gigs you did, the better experience you got? It's all about experience.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I remember thinking, like, the first 5 and 10s, I remember thinking, God, I don't know how I could ever make this any tighter because, you know, and it's true. You know, people always say to you, you'll end up cutting and cutting and cutting, and what's in your first 5 or your first 10, you'll have a few lines left of it in the end. And I was like, I just can't see how that's possible. And you keep doing it and you keep doing it, and you realize, oh no, there's a lot of waffle in that, and I could get another line in there, another line in there. It just kind of works itself out over time. It gets tighter and tighter. It's but you know, I did the full run of Edinburgh this time for the first time. I shared an hour with a delightful Daniel Fox, but like doing broadly like the same half hour, 24 nights in a run, just immeasurably different and measurably better, I think. Well, I hope so anyway. I feel a lot better by the end of it, just because it's like you're in boot camp.
Well, it's the experience of different audiences as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and we got such different audiences every night, and what would really work one night would kind of, you know, I felt would be, I don't know, would land a bit differently with a different audience. So you had to find in the moment, you had to be quite reactive and had a different tag on or something like that. So it was a real good workout. And a good workout in when there's a real comedy savvy audience, you know, you're not going to get let off with anything. So it was.
I cannot imagine you ever having a bad gig because you're so enthusiastic on stage. Have you had any difficult gigs as opposed to good gigs?
Yeah, 100%. I've had. Yes.
You want to give an example?
You know, sadly, enthusiasm. I don't know what that word was. Enthusiasm can only carry me so far, I suppose. Yeah. Oh God, I've had loads. You know, where I'm trying to think of some. I remember one. It was like the hottest day of the year. I don't know, last year, the year before. People didn't know the night was. I don't think people in this pub really expected there to be comedy on. I think it was all of a sudden they were there having a nice quiet pint, and all of a sudden there's 4 comedians going to come and interrupt that. You know, they were hot, they were flustered. No one really wanted to be there, and I honestly, I don't think any of us really got anything. And it was like that was my first like really tough gig where I was like, oh God, like, you know, my normal maybe 15 minutes of material I've got through in maybe 11 minutes because there's just nothing coming back, and like. You just stood there going, oh my God, this is like
you have to keep going.
You just got to keep going, right? So you keep kind of plowing on, and I don't know, it was like it's really hard not to sink back into yourself. I think probably, and probably to the annoyance of the people in the audience,
Yeah.
I got even louder and even bigger and even more enthusiastic. Even though
Well, that's what
I was kind of
that's what I
dying
love.
inside. But
That's what I love about watching you. Your energy is amazing on stage. It really is.
I'm bloody knackered afterwards, mate. It doesn't betray the real me, because generally I'm in my 40s now. I'm quite tired a lot of the time, but maybe that's why.
I'm 55. With me, they're all laughter lines.
Oh yeah, well, okay, that's okay. I can see that. I like that. I like that. But yeah. I mean, I don't think I. Sometimes when I watch like a video clip back to like, I don't know, kind of seeing how a bit of a set went or whatever, and I think, oh my God, I wave my limbs around a lot more than I realise. Like I've got a lot of limbs, and I'm wafting it about all over the place. I'm surprised I don't take people's eye out half the time, but.
Well, whilst you're being energetic on stage, what do you like to talk about on stage? Do you have any specific themes or any current things or anything that comes to mind? Is there a specific thing that you like to talk about?
I suppose in some ways there's some threads. I mean, being a tall old leather tends to cover most of it. Do you know what I mean? So like, I'm 6'1" and a bit. So like, there's lots of anecdotes, I suppose, or stuff. I suppose a lot of it just comes from the ridiculous situations you end up finding yourself in real life. Like, so I get because I'm tall and I'm not particularly feminine, I get mistaken for a bloke quite a lot. And, that just gets just gets you in some funny situations that you're like, this is like comedy's writing itself. Or, so there's a lot about, and I guess just stuff that, I don't know, that's a lot of the stuff that I talk about. Anything that interests me, I suppose, anything that I see a little, I don't know, something that makes me giggle in real life, I try and turn into something.
Would you say you're a political comedian?
Not overtly. I suppose there's an undercurrent in it, in that I've definitely got quite strong views about quite a lot of stuff, and I always try and but I don't overtly do stuff around politics at the moment. Anyway, it's not. I think because like in my life, because I've worked in mental health, and like a lot of people have had my own mental health problems. I've got family with mental health problems, so people always say to me, "Are you going to do more stuff about mental health in your comedy?" And I'm like, for the time being, no, because I think this is something different for me. But I say there's always that kind of, even though I'm not overtly doing stuff about it, I'm always trying to be on the right side of things, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's great. That's so good. Yeah. Because I think that as soon as you walk on stage, as soon as you talk into the microphone, the audience are yours, and you're free to say whatever you want, which is wonderful. And if you can make it as humorous as possible, then that is a trigger for the audience to listen more, I would think. I don't know.
But and I think different people just have different styles, right? Like what works for some, would, if I tried to do that, I'd die on my arse, and similarly, I suppose. But I don't know. At the moment, I think, I'm sure my comedy will evolve over time. It'd be good if it didn't. But at the moment, I kind of like to write about, I don't know, embarrassing or silly situations I've got in, or things that I just find a bit stupid or funny in real life, and turn that into something that is kind of like escapism for me at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you have a way of remembering all your routines? Do you take a notebook on stage? Do you write things down on your hand? You practice beforehand? How do you remember it all?
I tend to find the actual routines easy to remember, because they kind of link together. Like once I get into a bit, I know where I'm going with it. Where I often, I don't know if I've ever got particularly mixed up, but where I think I might get confused or forget is like if I've changed the order of a set. And then what I'll do is like, before a gig, I'll sit down and I'll just write out like the headlines of like what each chunk is, and kind of just work it through my mind, and not like rehearse the whole set, but just be like, okay, I'm going to go from, I don't know, being mistaken for a man in the toilets to going to then sort of the next bit on being androgynous, and the next bit on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so once I've got those headlines in order in my head, usually
so it all links in
on stage, it kind of remembers it. But yeah, sometimes I throw myself if I've moved a bit around, and I'm thinking, oh, that normally links into that other bit, but I've already done that. Now where am I? So, but yeah, normally it's fine. If I just write the headlines down and just kind of land those, then normally I'll
Yeah,
normally
that's fascinating, because it reminds me of the story. Other than this blog, the most creative thing I've ever done is write a play, which
Amazing.
which I initially I wanted to put it on in Edinburgh, which I might still do. I might revise it, but
What's it about?
We put it on for Comic Relief in 2007, and it's called The Applicant. And it's basically about me. My home city is Carlisle, and I came to London. I've been in London half my life.
Yeah.
And I had a successful girlfriend in London, but I didn't have a job myself. Yeah. And the play is about my experiences of having interviews. And I'd never, and the first part of it's a comedy. I must stress that.
It'd be weird if you didn't write a comedy play.
The first scene is me in the waiting room, never had an interview in my life, and I look round and the audience are there, and I'm nervous as hell, and I start talking to them. So it's a monologue, and it's about my life and everything. And then the interviewer comes on, interviews me, and then it runs in parallel. So it's monologue, interview, and the more I do, the more successful I become. Yeah. So my mate's very good at accents, and he played all the interviewers. Amazing. And at the end of it, I get given my ideal job. But when I get the job, the interviewer kills me. So it's
got a happy ending then.
The last scene is me at the gates of heaven or hell or wherever we go to, being interviewed by God. God says to me, we've been watching you on planet Earth, and we think the ideal job for you here is to interview corpses to see if they go to heaven or hell. And I shrug my shoulders and the lights go out. It's actually based on the film After Hours, which is one of few Martin Scorsese comedies, and it's the film's Griffin Dunne, and he spends the entire film, leaves work at the start of it, and he spends the entire film trying to get home. Yeah. And at the end, in the 90 minutes, he's crashed down on his desk, and he just says "Good morning, Paul" on his computer. So he's never going to get the job. So anyway, the point of the story is, there I was running out on the first night with this great long monologue after 10 weeks of rehearsal, and I forgot the monologue. So I was like, I was like a rabbit in headlights. I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I forgot the thing. And so remembering your routine is pivotal, and that's one of the things when I sit there and watch, I'm thinking, how are they remembering this?
And
it's
interesting. I mean, I suppose there's different tricks to it, I suppose, but I think the thing that really terrified me, maybe the thing that really terrified me was like, oh my God, what if I forget a line? Like, what if I forget a bit? And that kind of like, but then the stress and the panic of that was almost like, that's taking your mind off the job in the first place, right? So like, I guess after a while, sometimes I realized there's definitely bits that are absolutely crucial you get right. Like if you mess up a punchline or you give it away or something, there's definite things that you cannot leave out or mess up. But I kind of also realized the more I did it, sometimes you say something slightly differently, or sometimes, I don't know, you forget a bit, but then you fill in with another bit, and it kind of realized it wasn't as disastrous as I thought it might be. And so sort of
I think there are tricks whereby, certainly with comedians, the audience won't know if you've messed up because you can steer it to how you want. Yeah. And it's similar with plays, I think, as well, because if you forget a line, if you keep going, that's the key, certainly on that first night when I forgot the monologue, I never made the same mistake. And when my mate come on, what was interesting, when there was two people on stage, I never messed a line up. Being out there on my own, I tried to get all the good jokes in. I tried to get all the Carlisle references in, all the London references, and I just lost my way. And we'd had all this rehearsal, and I kicked myself for a while afterwards thinking about it. But I was still proud of the greatest joke in it, which was his name, who was he was called Norman Oliver Hope. So when he got rejection letters, there were no hope, of course.
I love it. You didn't forget that one though. That's good. That's
Yes.
all right. But it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Like how much we beat ourselves up about stuff when.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You know, like people often don't know if we've missed something out or got something wrong, or what something that we think, that we can come away. Now, sometimes I've come away being really hard on myself. That line didn't quite land as well tonight, and I wonder why. I wonder if I missed it up, or maybe because I missed this bit out of the setup or whatever. In reality, I think we're much harder on ourselves than perhaps audiences are. Not all the time. Sometimes audiences can be really harsh, but like often, I think we can really go over and over things and think actually,
there's the
right in the scheme of things.
Yeah, there's the Sarah Millican line where she said if you have a bad gig, you may mull on it after the moment, but you get up tomorrow the next day and at 10 o'clock you forget that and you move on. I've always remembered that, and I've always remembered the Ken Dodd line where he's describing laughter, Freud's take on laughter. And he said Freud said laughter was, and he described a great long way, a sentence of laughter and getting laughs and everything. And then at the end of it, the tagline was, "Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, Freud never played Glasgow Empire on a Friday night."
Love it. That's brilliant.
And love it. So it must be, oh my God, I'm here tonight, or I'm there tonight, or whatever, But what is wonderful about watching you, and it's the sign of a great comedian, is that you appear to have no fear on stage. Is that correct?
Yes and no, I suppose. So I guess, before I go on, yeah. But I think then once I'm up, because before I go on, in that second before I go on, I'm like, shit, I've forgotten everything. I don't know. Oh my God. My mind's gone blank. Oh no! Oh God, I've got to walk out. And then I'm out, and I'm like, oh well, you're here now. And so in that 5 to 10 minutes before I go on, yes, I'm stressed, anxious. I guess when I'm out there, I'm a bit like, well, I'm here now, aren't I? So I've got to make the best of a bad job. And so once I'm out there, I don't feel that nervous when I'm on stage. No, I enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy it, and I kind of just think, well, it is what it is now, isn't it? Like, I can't do much more than just go for it. So I think once I'm up there, 99% of the time, I'm loving it and I am really enjoying it. And even if it's, I don't know, I trip up a bit or something goes a bit wrong, I feel like I'm much more at ease with that now and enjoy it. But saying that, I've trained. Part of my job is, I used to have to sort of train people around mental health and other stuff.
Yeah.
Often who don't want to be there. I've done that for years. So I guess I've got over that anxiety of public speaking a while back. I know it's different doing comedy. I know that, but kind of, I suppose when you've been in training rooms with people who really don't want to listen, and you're slogging away to win the round, and you've got through you've kind of experienced every disaster going, you think, well, if it doesn't go great, well, never mind, I'll survive it. So I guess, you just kind of learn to have that comfort in, well, what's the worst that could happen, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you still get nerves to this day going on stage before a gig?
Yeah, about a few minutes before I go on, I just think, what am I doing? Everything's gone. My mind's gone blank. What am I doing?
Wow.
And then you get out there and you love it. I always think, I guess actually what goes through my head every time is, well, never mind, if this isn't a great gig, I'm just, everyone doesn't have great gigs. Never mind, I'll just get through it. So I always assume, I think, before I go on, that this is not going to be my gig tonight. And then anything is better than that. So if it goes, it's always a positive when you come up, you think, oh, it's better than I thought it was going to be. I don't intentionally think that. It's just kind of what goes through my head, I suppose. But
I think how you've played it is you've used it to your advantage, the nerves. So you're going on with a positive outlook. Well, if it's not very good, I'm here and I'm doing my best, and it's all very positive. Would you say that once you've walked across the stage and you've said your first line, the nerves go? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I suppose it's in two bits for me, I suppose. One is, the minute I step out, I just think, well, no, I'm here now. So, right, go on then, go for it. And I guess that is once I've taken that first step out, I'm like, well, I'm here now. What? So I've just got to do my best, and it's going to be what it would be. So almost the minute I step out, that's kind of nerves of sort of waiting on the side have gone. But then, yeah, of course, like when you go out and you kind of you pick the mic out and you say your first line and you get your first laugh, then you're like, all right, okay, and that of course that then you're
And
kind of
you're
really into
away.
the swing of things then.
And
But
then as I said earlier, because you're getting the laughs, you can then think, right, this audience is mine. I can now say what I want and get it across how I want to say it, and you have a wonderful gig. What's your view of comedy competitions?
Interesting question.
Do you like them? Do you think they're good?
I like them if I do well in them.
You think they benefit a comedian's career?
I think that generally I've quite enjoyed them. Even, you know, whether I've done well or not. You know, some competitions I've got further, and some I've not got anywhere in. I think they are. I guess what I've enjoyed about them is, you know, it's another opportunity to meet people at a kind of similar experience to you, and to, you know, I'll try and see them as another gig. Do you know what I mean? And like enjoy it as I would any other gig, and see it as a chance to meet other people on the circuit you're perhaps not always getting to gig with. You know, it's on one level, I really try and hold in mind these things are all subjective. If you go forward, great. If you don't, you don't. I mean, of course, it's always a bit of a kick if you don't get as far as you want to, but you know, broadly, I just try and enjoy them and realize that not everyone can. Of course, not everyone can get through. So I think they're good. I think some of them are better than others, of course, but I think they're good for meeting people. They're good for gigging with people. Some of them, you know, get you to connect with people that you wouldn't have had an opportunity to be in front of before. Often, you know, no matter how well you progress or not, you get seen and someone will offer you a gig or something after it. So I think as long as you don't, I try not to set my sights on, oh, you've just got to do well to get something out of it in terms of like progressing through the competition. But I think most ones I've done a few now, but whether I've done well or not, some things come out of them in terms of meeting someone new or getting a gig out of somebody, or, you know, just realizing, oh God, I could have done that better. And next time I don't know, I need to up my game or whatever. So
it's interesting because I haven't done any competitions with the blog or the podcast or anything yet, but when I first started the blog, I was invited to go for a half-day writing class, and everybody around me wanted to be reviewers. And the woman who was presenting it said, she was a bit standoffish. She said, we forget why you're here. And I said, well, you invited me, and I can say that I'm not a diarist, I'm not a reviewer, I'm not a critic. I'm a member of the audience, and I'm out to have a good time.
Yeah.
And they never bothered me again all day. And the rest of the people around me, they all wanted to be reviewers, and they laid into them. You can't do this, you can't say this. And it was fascinating seeing how that worked.
Yeah.
And I just thought, as I said earlier on, I think I found something quite unique here.
Yeah.
And I think with comedy competitions as well, they can be advantageous. But as you say, it does depend on the circumstances of them, what they are and stuff. It's fascinating. Can you describe more about your writing process and where you get your ideas from? Do you have a writing process?
I think it would be a real stretch of the definition to say I have a writing process, but it's something I aspire to have. Oh God, yeah. I see some people, I think, oh God, you're so organised and well thought out and planned. And I tend to write things on the back of a fag packet when I'm walking from one place to another. And
that's wonderful.
I guess what I am good at, what I've become really well trained at from listening to other people is the minute anything props into my mind, I'll note it down. I'll email myself or I'll put it on notes or something. Because the minute you don't write it down, it's gone. And sometimes it'll turn into stuff, sometimes it won't. So I've got God, now it's making me shudder actually, because I've got pages and pages of half-assed written notes that half the time I've written when I'm half asleep, so I don't even know what they are. And if anyone was to read them, they'd probably have a concern for my well-being. But like it's just all over the place. But I kind of try and write it all down, and then I'll eventually, if I get a bit of time, and this is where I'm not very disciplined or don't really find the time, is I do then try and go back to them and try and, I don't know, cluster them or theme them in some way and see if I can get a bit out of it. But so I'm really good at writing the notes. well, I need to get much better at being a bit more sort of disciplined at then going back to them and theming them or trying to work them up, I suppose. But I suppose what I do find a lot is that sometimes just by having gone and writing them down, like sometimes if you're on stage, often I end up working things out on stage because not intentionally even, but I don't know, you get heckled or something, you know, an ad lib comes with the audience and then all of a sudden something that you've written down comes out your mouth, you know, and you know, I've got actually, I'm never saying that again because that didn't land at all. Or, oh, maybe there is something in that. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I think things come out quite impromptu and then I'll go back and think, all right, and I must focus on that again.
It's interesting because I've told many a comedian this story. I've actually had a go at stand-up comedy myself.
Did you?
It was about 10 years ago. Yeah. I knew a promoter and he said to me, I can get you on a gong show on a Monday afternoon for old folk. It couldn't be worse, right? So I wrote this script about me crashing cars in Carlisle or being accident prone in a car, which he loved. And he said, right. He said, you've got 3 minutes. And I ran out and there's 3 people in the audience. Yeah. And the first thing I said to them was, good afternoon, everybody. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And of course, I'm his double. And one old bloke at the back just went, fuck off! And I walked off with my head between me.
Oh God, they can be brutal, can't they?
I'm gonna go. So I went back out and did it again. Same thing happened. And I said to him, I don't know whether this is for me. I said, I think I'm much better placed in the audience supporting everybody, but never say never. So you never know.
First time was a gong show. I mean, that's pretty.
Couldn't be worse.
Oh yeah, I mean they are brutal.
Have you done any?
Yeah, but I've done a few, and you know,
they are terrifying. They're terrifying, but they are brutal. I think is the right word.
I just think I definitely think they privilege a certain style of comedy over others for sure in that time, and like when it's so, you know, I also think, well, like with other gigs, but perhaps it's even more pronounced. You can't judge your ability as a comic on a gong show. You know, you've got to go. I've kind of gone into them knowing, just trying to remind myself like what they are and what they're not. Do you know what I mean? Go for it, give it a crack. If it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah, I mean they're brutal. And often it just depends. Like if 4 people before you have got through, then you go on. Well, they just want to vote somebody off. It's not always about how good or not you are.
It's a fascinating thing because again it's a competition.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's good or not because the audience seem to be baying for the ones that they don't like. And my whole outlook of going to a comedy show is not to listen to an audience baying for comedians. It's to listen to the comedians and laugh. So it's an interesting thing, and of course I hate them after that.
I mean, yeah, they are what they are, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. They are.
Maybe have another go one day.
Come on, you should, or maybe try and do a normal open spot, rather than going for a gong show.
Yeah.
You know, you'd be take that material back and do it like, you know, there's loads of you know it. There's great open mics and open spots everywhere. Yeah.
Plus,
and I mean, if anybody's got a way in to almost every promoter in the land,
I think plus, of course, this could be the start of me running my own comedy night. God help you all. That would be good, wouldn't it? So yeah.
Well, I mean, now you've said it, and now I think we have evidence on record.
I'm
going to listen back to this. If you edit that bit out, I'll cause a stink, right? So now we have it I have it on good authority from you yourself on record that you're going to set a comedy night. Excellent. Is it going to be a brutal gong show?
Oh no, it wouldn't be a gong show. that would be cruel.
That'd be so funny if you were just like,
the Richard Gill gong hour.
Yeah, get 30 seconds and you're off. And it'll only be you with the
let's
gong.
Move on. That's all pie in the sky. Let's move on. I am very privileged every year to be able to go to the Edinburgh Fringe. I've been going since 2005. and I've missed two of them.
Was it around in those days?
Yeah. It started in 1947.
Because of course you know that.
20 years before I was born.
Now I'm going to try and do some maths. It escapes me. I'll come back to that. I'll work that out.
And I go and I love it. And
Yeah.
it's I see about 50 shows. I'm exhausted by the end of it.
Yeah.
I saw you outside the Pleasance Courtyard this particular year in 2022. And was this the first year you'd been, or the first year you had your show, or had you gone up as a punter before? Or?
Yeah, so I went a few years ago. I think maybe 2015-ish,
Right.
2016. I went as a punter just for sort of 5 days, and did like you did, crammed in 6-8 shows a day, and came away being like, I don't know who I've seen or what I've done, because it's amazing, isn't it?
Your liver's
one show after another. You can't. It just becomes like all molded into one, and it's like you never had time to process anything. But I mean, I loved it. I ate far too much haggis and chips, saw far too many shows, loved every minute of it. So that was great. I did do about 5 days up there last year, just to kind of went up and did a couple of work in progress, and hopped on a few spots and did like.
Was that like a full solo show, like a half hour or 45 minutes?
It was half hour. Yeah. So I split an hour, and then this year did the full month. Again, split an hour with Daniel Fox, and really this year I wanted to learn. I wanted to make the material better, which I, hopefully some bits did get better, some bits definitely didn't. But really, I just wanted to learn, how the hell do you survive being up in Edinburgh for a month? Without losing the plot, and how do you cope doing the same show every day? And so I kind of went up more to kind of figure that out, really, and loved it. I mean, I was absolutely exhausted, and realised that at my age, doing a show at 10:30 every night, I'm way too old for. And I've never been a violent woman, but about halfway through, someone said to me, "Oh God, I can't wait to have a night in tomorrow." And I was like, "A night in? I can't have a night in." Because every night about 10:30, that was the point where I was nearly lost it, because all I wanted to do was like sit on my pants and sit in my pants on the couch and watch Netflix for a night. But yeah, apart from that, loved it.
And of course, Daniel Fox, who you were with, he is a great comedian.
He's excellent. Yeah, amazing.
So the two of you would have been magic.
It was brilliant. Do you know what? I couldn't have picked someone better to do it with. Like, we both got the same haircut. Except mine's better. No, same haircut, one's blonde, one's not. One's funny, one's not. So sadly, he got the humour, I got the hair. It was a great combination. He's a good mate, and we worked really well. We drew a similar crowd, like our materials, similar enough that we worked well together, but different enough that there was no, we're quite different in our kind of, in other ways. So yeah, it was great fun, really great. And we didn't kill each other as well, which was amazing.
Well, there you are.
I mean, he might have wanted to kill me, but he didn't, and I really, really value his restraint, actually.
Yeah. What to date do you think has been your comedy highlight? You think that was doing Edinburgh?
That's definitely one of them.
Yeah,
definitely one of them. Coming back alive.
Yes.
From a month in Edinburgh, where I barely saw a vitamin the entire time, I think was probably definitely a highlight. I think that, I really enjoyed it. And it really just helped me figure out like what I need to do in terms of like starting to think about taking my own show and stuff. So it was really, it was great seeing so many of the people's like debut shows and going to see more established comics, and just seeing the structure of an hour.
Well, that's the thing. I was just going to say, in 2023, is that going to be your first hour? First solo show? I don't know.
Good question. I think I'll definitely do 45 next year. Whether I'll do an hour, I don't know yet. I think
you could maybe do something like the Comedy Zone, where there's three of you, 20 minutes each.
Yeah,
because that's like a little step up, and then you're away.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good doing it this year. That was great. I think to do an hour, I think probably the year after for sure. I don't know. We'll see this year, maybe. I'll definitely maybe try and do a 45 this year. If I so next year.
I'm sure you will. I'm
but
sure
not.
you will.
I doubt an hour the year after, I reckon.
Yeah, I think so, because I'm looking at 2 years possibly resurrecting my show and putting it up there, my play. So when I've got my play on and you're doing your 1 hour,
Deal.
we'll have a beer.
And also by then you'll have had your comedy night set up, as we determined earlier. Your Rich's brutal gong night, which we can bring up there as well. That would be great. Just suck the life out of everybody a little bit more, because that's what people need in Edinburgh. Sounds great. Yeah, no, I think the year is the next, maybe. It's a lot. It's a lot to get from 30 minutes up to an hour, and to have there were so many exceptional shows this year. It was great to see, but it really kind of makes you realise, God, it's there's so much work and craft goes into that.
It was amazing, yeah. But of course, everybody had been writing because of the pandemic, and they were all ready to go with new shows. And we thought particularly outstanding was Brennan Rees, who I'd never seen live, and Sean Walsh Sean Walsh got nominated. Yeah. And the comedy about his dad, the comedy show about his dad, was extraordinary. It really was.
Yeah, I thought Brennan's was really clever. I loved it.
With the cards and everything.
Didn't get to see his, but Brennan's I loved. It was so clever.
Yeah, very, very funny, man. Very funny, man. Do you have any ambitions as a comedian?
None at all. Absolutely none at all.
I'm realistic. Comedy night.
Any poor old sarcastic? Any ambitions?
Would you like to be on TV? Would you like your own quiz show? Anything like that?
Well, first, I would like to be the host of your new comedy night, first off.
Well, I'll tuck that behind me.
I've got my own podcast with you. That's one ambition out of the way. I don't know. I'm just genuinely, happy to see where it goes. I love it. I'm gigging in loads of different places. I'm starting to MC more, which I like. Starting to think about writing a bit of a longer show. I mean, of course, who would say no to being on telly or radio or whatever? But I don't know. I'll just see where it goes. I'm a bit.
You find MCing better than performing a routine?
I don't know if I'd say better, but different. I get different things from both of them.
In what sense?
I quite like because I guess the favourite bits about when I'm doing a set are those off the cuff ad lib moments where you can just go with something, and then you kind of go back to your material. So I do like that kind of like the back and forth and the kind of off the cuff moments. Yeah. So I really enjoy that MCing because you can just do more. It's all about that, right? Really. So I don't know if it's better as such, but I definitely like them for different reasons equally.
What was particularly impressive, because I saw you at Epic Comedy, which is Paul Cox's group of comedy clubs.
That was a night when it was about 400 degrees, wasn't it?
It was boiling, and it was Paul McCaffrey, who's been on here, you, who have now been on here, and Clinton Baptiste, Alex Lowe, who's also been on here, and Paul Cox has also been running. And I thought I was delighted for him, because he was a comic who we said at the start, who I first championed on the 5-minute comedy nights, and I saw him at Birdie's quite a lot, Birdie's Comedy Club on the Strand, which was a free. And for him to do the comedy club like he does down there is amazing. Yeah. And your 20 minutes. You weren't only just enthusiastic and energetic, but I thought you were brilliant with an audience as well. So I can see where the MCing and the comparing, you like doing it, because you're very easygoing with an audience and very warm with them.
Yeah, and that's the bit I enjoyed. I definitely sort of maybe not all of the routines, but quite a lot of the routines, I always try and build in a bit where I know I'll have to do a bit with the audience, and because and I suppose over time, I suppose when you're doing that in bits, over time you get used to all the reactions that you might get. So it's not always as off the cuff as it is at the start, for sure. But I just enjoy that playfulness, that backwards and forwards, and and sort of I don't know. I just enjoy playing around with it. I think that's the bit I enjoy the most, I reckon.
That's brilliant. It's really good, and it's a great quality to have as a comedian. To bounce off the audience and to just.
It's interesting because recently I've learning to do that in different style rooms.
Right.
So like, Paul Cox is like that night we're at, like, everyone's sat around, right? Everyone's close to you. Everyone's like, you're kind of right next to the audience, right? So you can really get playful with it. But then I remember the first time I did more of a theatre crowd, where it was like you're on a higher stage and you're like a meter or 2 meters away from the audience. And all of a sudden I realized, like, talk about difficult gigs, all of a sudden I realized, like, oh no, about 5 of my lines aren't going to work because just because they're further away, and like the off the cuff bits or the bits where I get them involved. I remember standing there on stage going, oh shit, like doing a bit of it, like I'm like performing and I'm talking about stuff. At the same time, in my head, I'm going, holy shit, this line's coming up in a minute. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what to bring in, and I don't know what to say on this. And it's like, but that's all part of the learning. So that's definitely stuff I'm having to like building more into the writing now. Like,
yeah,
if I want to do more like interaction with the audience, knowing how to do that in different venues like that. Oh my God. I mean, I definitely learned that I won't say the hard way as such, but it was definitely a learning curve when I was like literally in that moment realizing this is now not going to work or work differently.
But you got through it.
I got through it. I just
all experience.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes you just have to I don't know. Well, it's like what I was saying before. Like sometimes you're just like, well, I'm here now. It's tough shit, innit? I've got to go.
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
And it's always learning for the next time. Like I did.
Yeah.
And I leave that thinking, oh shit, what would I do next time? But...
Who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
Oh my God, this is impossible. So many. I mean, it would be, unsurprising to say, like, I grew up with Victoria Wood, and like I remember buying her script books as a kid and like acting out
so
a lot of her routines that
I
probably was a bit too young to act out, actually, but never mind. But yeah, loved her. And like there's so many amazing comics out at the moment, like sort of so many brilliant shows in Edinburgh, like new and more established comics, like Esther Manito's brilliant.
Yeah.
Jen Ives, I thought her show in Edinburgh was phenomenal. I loved the structure of Brennan Reese's show and how he took you on a journey through that. Like, I don't know, there's just
he was so good.
Yeah. And like I like how I'm trying to think. There's such a long list. You can edit this bit out, please.
There's so many of them. There's so many of them. I know. And part of the blog is to champion all, as I said earlier on. I've seen just about everybody I want to see live except Morecambe and Wise. I wish I'd seen them live in the 70s. Yeah. I think I had a chance. There's a section in my blog called The Ones That Got Away, and I've written 25 comedians that have either passed on or I've not had a chance to see, and they're top of the list. Dave Allen, I never saw. Bob Monkhouse, I'd love to have seen. Norman Wisdom, Frankie Howard. There's so many of them still now. And the wonderful thing is now, right now, is there must be about 700-800 comedians on the circuit. So it's wonderful to go and try and find the new talent. But certainly over the years, I've seen Frank Skinner, Victoria Wood live. She played Carlisle, which was extraordinary. She walked on, and the first thing she said to the audience was, "Can anybody please tell me where I am?"
I love it. I love it.
And they loved her from then on.
I honestly, this year, like I saw so many shows, and like I honestly thought they were all brilliant. Like Amy Gledhill's show this year was
she's superb.
I mean, she's just got such presence on stage.
And
like she's got such a good energy about. I saw both like in a like Delightful Sausage and her solo show. I thought she was phenomenal.
She is brilliant. She's so good. I've been very lucky to be in London for half my life, 30 years. And when I first came down, I first went to the Comedy Store in about 1988, and on the bill was Phil Jupitus, Richard Morton, Linda Smith, God bless her, and Charles Fleischer topped the bill. Now, Charles Fleischer was an American wacky comedian who was never heard of again because he went to Hollywood and he voiced Roger Rabbit, which was extraordinary.
Oh my God.
And I'm so pleased. And it's things like that
Yeah.
that the blog is a wonderful archive for. I'm very lucky to meet a load of the comedians now. I love Harry Hill, and I met him very recently, and he still to this day has my favourite opening line to any gig. I saw him 30 years ago downstairs at the King's Head in Crouch End. He brushed past me and he jumped up on stage and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really sorry I'm late. I had to have a testicle brought down." And everybody burst out laughing. And then he said, "From Derby."
Love it.
Love it. And when I met him, he went, "Well, I still say that to this day, Rich." Still gets laughs.
Amazing.
And it's things like that. It's wonderful. Like me, do you go to a lot of gigs as a member of the audience?
I did. I mean, Edinburgh was the time I went to see loads because, of course, I was up there and had the time while I was doing mine. I'd love to see more because I just don't have the time because, I work full time and I'm gigging. I've seen a couple recently. I saw like Joe Lycett's tour. I toured show recently, which was, it was just brilliant.
He's so good. Yeah.
So that was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I don't see as much as I'd like to see, but then I guess you're seeing loads of other acts all the time, aren't you? But it's
a joy to go. I think the whole process of going is wonderful, and if I can take my enthusiasm along, which I always do, what's not to love? Because
100%.
It's just I know that might sound big-headed, but it's. They always say the compares always say if you give the comedians all you've got, they'll do a better thing, and you can see when you've got an enthusiastic audience there. If you're on a bill of comedians, would you stay and watch them?
If I can, yeah. Normally, the only time I don't is if for whatever reason I've got to travel back. I've got to leave for travel. But normally, because I think that's what you get from it, right? That you're wrong, but it's always great seeing, being able to stay and watch others and seeing there. So like if I'm on in the middle or whatever, I'll always try and get there to see who's opening, or wherever I'll try and then stay for whoever's on after me. Because that's part of the fun of it. And even sometimes if you've gigged with someone a fair few times recently, I still always enjoy, because it's always a bit different,
of course it is. It's always different.
I do try to most of the time.
Has there ever been nights where you do 2 or 3 gigs in different comedy clubs? Do you do, because that must be quite difficult to maneuver. Edinburgh
was the main one, like hopping from spot to spot to spot. I've done a couple where we're doing two in the same night, and it's great fun. It's great fun if you can get them. Timing isn't my strong point, so getting from one place to another on time, all good fun.
No, that's brilliant. How have you found online gigs? You mentioned online gigs at the top of the show. How did you find them as opposed to live gigs, and what do you think the future is for comedy?
It was really hard actually to compare, because I started doing online gigs when I was still really, really, really new. So they were some of my first experiences. So it was, at the time they were the ones I could get. So I went for them. And I think what was brilliant about them, and I guess what stays to be brilliant about them, is that they'd open up comedy to people who perhaps can't get to a comedy club for whatever reason, can't afford to or can't get out, so it's more accessible, I think, in lots of ways. But equally, I think, you don't get the same kind of interaction either. So I think to have a bit of both is good. I don't think I'll ever replace being in the same room with people, but if it opens it up and makes it a bit, the nights that kind of the live nights, but also stream them for people who can't make it, say for whatever reason, logistics or money or health reasons, whatever that might be, I think it's great to open it up more broadly too. But I think they've also got better over time though, because I think they've got better at having like audience on the front row on Zoom gigs and stuff like that. So there's that more interactive side of it as well. So
certainly when the pandemic was on, it was a lifeline for me sitting here, because and they were really good. But when they first started off, they didn't have any audio. They didn't know how to do the audio. So I would sit here and laugh and
No
I'd
one
be
could hear
laughing
you.
at four walls, and I thought I was going to be taken away because people would be like knocking on the wall. But
I mean, if Rich laughs and no one's there to hear him laugh, did he even laugh at all? I mean, that's got to be. Did it even happen?
but then they got the audio track on,
Yeah,
and the comedians could then time their jokes, chat to the audience, and whatever. And I used to go to Always Be Comedy online. I used to go to Sean James's Monday night, Happy Mondays one. And I used to go to Jarlath Regan's Irishman Abroad. And so when they were done well, they were done really well.
Oh, there were some brilliant ones. Really brilliant. I really hope it continues in some form.
Yeah.
I think things are just changing, aren't they? Like I think to have the mix of the two is brilliant. But
but I'm with you. You can't beat having a few beers on a Saturday night, having a meal with your friends, and then going into a comedy club, sitting down and saying, right, entertain me, and you're in the moment. Anything can happen, and it's just the most magical thing. It really is.
Yeah, totally. And you just laugh so differently as well, I find. I mean, I laugh watching stuff online or at home, but when you're in that room full of people and you're kind of, it's just, there's no better feeling, is it? When you're either the audience or performing, to actually be in that room when it's happening there. It's a real buzz.
It's just fantastic. And that's why we do it, me and you, or the comedian. That's why the comedians exist. That's why this blog exists. That's why the podcast exists. It's wonderful. I've so much enjoyed talking to you. You've been a fantastic guest. Been really, really good guest. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go? So, what's your social media handle? Do you have a podcast? Are you writing a book? Anything?
In all my free time, I'm getting all those set up. Also writing a award-winning series and sitcom and a world tour. But aside from that, it's been brilliant. It's been so great to have a chat with you. It's always great seeing you at gigs, but really brilliant to be here as well.
Thank you.
Social media, it's at that Kate Martin on Twitter, Instagram. It's the same on all of those. But,
that's great.
It's been great to chat.
Thank you so much for your time. I am looking forward very, very much to seeing you very soon live. Make me laugh again. And all the very best to you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Rich.
Take care.
You take care. Thanks.